there will be 4 charges brought against Adolf Hitler. These are racial purity, anti-Semitism, Jewish Holocaust, and medical experimentation. Each charge will be brought with the prosecution and then defended by the defense. The students of Secondo Bachillerato will be the judges and therefore will evaluate you at the end of the trial. We will start with the charges of racial purity. I'd like to pass over to the prosecutors for the prosecution now.
Okay, good morning. We accuse Hitler of the bad treatment he gave to black people. According to him, black people were an inferior race, and as he says in the Mein Kampf, the book he wrote, he thought that Jewish people brought the black people to Germany with a clear aim of eliminating, killing all the white people. As you know, this is completely false, as black people did not have no intention of killing anyone. He also said, and he also thought, that black people carried out diseases, as they were an inferior race. They used them as medical experimentations. They could not work, they could not practice or do any work because there were bans of them. And they could not also attend to universities. And when black people had children, these children were named as bastards.
Gypsies were followed behind the Jews as enemies of the German people, having no place in Adolf Hitler's ideology further. In 1933, some Gypsies were sterilized. In the same year, camps were established by the Nazis to contain Gypsies. Heinrich Himmler signed an order in 1938 to pursue the Gypsies and deny their preparation in Germany. By the end of 1944, the Racial Hygiene and Research Unit drafted some 24,000 documents that decided whether a Gypsy lived or died. Those who were not killed were forced into slave labor and compulsory sterilization. So we would like to know why Hitler gave these commands, even though he didn't specifically kill anyone.
The homosexual persecution in Germany and how Adolf Hitler had an influence. So beginning from 1933 to 1945, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany persecuted gay men and lesbians, even though and other groups, and they became Holocaust victims. In 1933, gay organizations were banned. School books with homosexual influence also were burnt, and general organizations were completely illegal. The school scaffold, known as the SS, had a major influence in this chase for the gay and the lesbians, due to the fact that Hitler gave commands to them to persecute them. Even though Adolf Hitler didn't actually physically kill anybody, he had the commands and had the power to give these commands to the SS and to the National Socialist German Party. So then, from 1933 to 1945, 1,000 men were arrested, and some were incarcerated in concentration camps, and the other ones were incarcerated in just normal regular prisons. During their stay in the concentration camps, thousands of gay men were killed. They were tortured badly. They were treated appallingly, and the SS and people who were working at the concentration camps treated them appallingly, and they used different techniques to find how to stop the homosexual spread throughout Germany. It's still hard to actually say how many gay people actually died, because there was such a wide variety of people actually incarcerated in the concentration camps. But out of the 100,000 men that were arrested and the 15,000 that were sent to the concentration camps, around about 60% were eventually killed, tortured, and then used for experimentation. Hitler also gave the homosexual and lesbians a pink badge on their clothes, known as the pink triangle. This was used to classify, to know where to locate the homosexuals and lesbians in the concentration camps. Other prisoners tortured them, treated them badly, and the guards at the concentration camps allowed this to happen, and Hitler had the power to stop this, but he didn't. So, thank you very much, and we would like to know now the defending part.
With the lawyers for the defense of Adolf Hitler on the count of persecution of minorities and racial purity, we would like to bring your attention to the fact that Hitler wasn't the only one who thought and practiced the persecution of these minorities, such as gypsies, homosexuals, black people. And we would like also to say that Hitler persecuted them in Europe, and Europe is fully influenced by Christian Catholic thoughts. And this was, not only he thought that homosexuals were bad, or that black people were bad, we would also say that the Bible, or Christianity as a whole, could also have done a point. Okay.
Also, the concept of a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic race did not originate with Hitler. This idea was created decades before Hitler even came to power in the United States. It's called eugenics, and it's a racist pseudoscience that is determined to wipe away all human beings considered unfit of this stereotype. And it takes Charles Darwin's principle of natural selection and applies it to society. Because eugenicists believed that human race could be improved by controlling breeding. So Nazi Germany was not the first or only country to sterilize people considered abnormal. Before Hitler, the United States led the world in forced sterilizations, and between the years 1907 and 1939, more than 60,000 people in the US were sterilized against their will. Also in Japan, the leprosy prevention laws of 1907, 1939, and 1953 permitted forced abortions and sterilization of patients in sanitariums, and it was also legal to punish patients for disturbing peace. Hitler and other advocates of sterilization policies were hardly influenced by eugenics. Moreover, Hitler was not an eugenicist population reductionist, as he had often been called. On the contrary, Hitler's party, the NSDAP, strongly encouraged women of the third Reich to be homemakers so that they could raise large families. And they also give financial incentives to large families. Hitler observed the degradation of the society in Austria and Germany, and it not only disgusted and angered him, but saddened him to see how these two powerful nations were destroyed from the inside out like a cancer that, according to Hitler, his contemporaries could not see. So he was a man who cared about society. He was a man who cared about the culture, about nature, about moral values, and about building and improving as opposed to destroying and degrading. He was a man who had fought for his country. How many of our politicians today can claim that?
As it concerns the gypsies, who are said to be another group of minorities to be hunted by the Nazis and Adolf Hitler, Adolf Hitler personally did not have the idea of exterminating them or sterilizing them. He never even gave the orders to do so. Not personally, he didn't have anything to do with it. It was the initiative of his SS leading member, the Protection Squadron, Henry Himmler, who in fact gave the direct order, and there is a document that proves it, to send all the gypsies to the concentration camps and therefore kill them. That was his initial idea because he did not consider them as pure people. He considered them as a mixed and not clean race. So, as the research showed, Adolf Hitler did not have anything to do with it and did not give a direct order.
Concerning the black people, I would like to say that even though in his Mein Kampf book he talks about his hate, let's call it like that, against them, he talks about it at the same time. He talks about social Darwinism, which was emerged in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and also place of Europe. So it's not like he's on here. And in the north Africa, he created the Free Arabian Legion, which is a voluntary military organization where black people could fight for Germany if they wanted to do so, because Hitler had also his own army there, so he didn't really need this legion. Toward homosexual respect, we wouldn't find persecution of homosexuality the first ones. In 1706, in Russia, homosexuals were burned in campfires. They were burned publicly in campfires in front of thousands and thousands of Russians. So the amount of homosexuals that are burned, and still nowadays in most of Christian Orthodox countries, it makes no sense to talk about homosexuals with Hitler, because he wasn't as concerned with homosexuals, and if he was, as my colleague Laia said, just for the fact that Christians, when we think about things, we just think about family, so man, woman, some kids, and a woman stay at home with the kids, and man goes to work. No? So if you think about that, in that ages, it was very, very strict. Nowadays, it's not that strict, but before it was. And two women who are together, or two men, if they're two men, both have to work. That's not the ideal. That was in whole Europe, not just Nazi thinking. And we would say Hitler started to really control where things happened in 1934 when he positioned as Führer. So there's lots of things. We would say lots of persecutions: gypsies persecution, black people, mental people, which were persecuted long before than him. So that's not, for us, that's not the point.
In order to Heinrich Himmler, which was the head of the SS, to start a persecution to the gypsies with no reason, because the gypsies did not do anything. They were like a normal social group as the Aryan race, and without doing anything, they started persecution to them, and they killed almost 6 million people.
I would like to say that 6 million people, including the Jews, not the gypsies. First of all, as you said before, we were speaking about Russia. We're not talking about Russia, we're talking about Hitler and what he did in Germany. Russia's a different point, and it has nothing to do with, if you're talking about influence cannot explain the torture and the deaths of thousands of people. Even though influence from the Bible, influence from other countries, cannot explain anything what Hitler did. He gave specific commands, and this kind of influence does not explain anything. Hitler gave a specific command to Heinrich Himmler in 1943 to say the following speech, talking about the Jews and different groups. We will, the persecution of the different groups in Nazi Germany and the Holocaust speaking publicly. The evacuation of the Jews, extermination of Jew race. The Jewish race is being exterminated. That is quite clear in our program, Elimination of the Jews, and we are doing it, exterminating them. And that speech said in 1943 in Poland, in Posen, specifically said, and specifically was commanded by Hitler to say that, and it specifically says they wanted to kill different groups, especially the Jewish and other groups, like the lesbians, homosexuals, and other gypsies and disabled, and the black race. They specifically said, under command by Hitler, that he wanted to kill the groups.
According to him, black people were an inferior race. As he said in the Mein Kampf, he thought that Jewish people brought the black people. So then, Mein Kampf idea of black people trying to kill black people, which was not not true. He thought they were an inferior race.
And respecting the part of the homosexuals, he said that homosexuals could not reproduce. They could not have, he had the idea of the Aryan race, of people being blonde with blue eyes, and homosexuals could not reproduce. and they could not perpetuate like the peace. So homosexuals were banned of having sexual relationships, saying like in bad words, because he said that homosexuals could not reproduce. So what can you say about that?
So, as I was saying before, we would like to know why we're talking about Russia, why, and try and defend what the command from Hitler to Himmler say the following tweet that I just read out, and why influence can't explain torture and deaths of thousands. Okay, and homosexuals. Thank you very much.
You said that Himmler didn't have anything in the contrary of the gypsies. That is not true. He personally believed that gypsies were not pure, and because they went they were not pure because they mixed with other races, and he thought that they had no right to go on reproducing. And he thought of sterilizing them at first, but then when he sent them to Poland, he decided, Himmler, not Hitler, he decided that he wanted them exterminated.
Okay, about the mentally detailed, there is no historical evidence that Hitler gave the order to start those killings, but there is historical evidence that Hitler gave the order to stop the killings, because there was a movement of opposition amongst the Catholic population of Germany. As Hitler cared about what her followers thought, he stopped the killings. He gave the order to stop the killings.
Repeating homosexuals. We're not talking about Russia because the important is Russia. We're talking about Russia because it was in 1706 where it started. So Hitler wasn't the one who thought, okay, let's kill all the homosexuals. He wasn't the one. He wasn't him. It was decades ago. Well, it wasn't him. So that's why we're talking about Russia. It's not because we think that that's a way of saying, okay, so Hitler is okay to kill lots of homosexuals. It's not that. It's just saying that it wasn't about him. He thought about it, the first one. And Christian beliefs influence. Of course, they influence. There's influence for thousands of years. So you can't say, when we live in a society and we're influenced day over day over loads of things, and you might do things, or we as a community do things just because we're influenced by it. For example, when a baby is born, it's normally baptized. So maybe the child is not Christian. Maybe when he's older, he decides being Jewish. You never know, but you do it other ways.
Come again with the homosexual point. Bible is pretty clear on that. Family, that's all that mattered that time, and taking into account that the beliefs of Hitler came from the Christian religion somehow, then we must take into account that were his beliefs, but they were also the beliefs of almost all of Germany.
Okay, just one line. That it was said by many philosophers that most of the time it's not the individual that's guilty, that's the society that made him that way. Thank you.
You have 2 minutes to state your conclusions.
Okay, well, to end up, we personally think that Adolf Hitler is Hitler for basically the bad treatment he gave to all social groups except for the idea he had of the Aryan race.
I think, as Tony said, and studies will show, and not in all the cases, but in many cases, Hitler maybe was influenced, but I think he was guilty of a lot of things, even though many today nowadays people have a very different idea of what actually happened. But I would still strongly say that he was guilty of manslaughter, torturing the Jewish, the gays, the lesbians, homosexuals, gypsies and different groups. So, thank you.
Our final statement, I would like to highlight our main point of the defense towards Adolf Hitler. As we stated earlier, he personally wasn't the initiator of any of the Holocaust towards the minorities, nor the creator of the racial purity idea. All the ideas actually came, for example, from the philosopher Sigmund Freud, among the others. All the orders given at the time towards the extermination of the impure were given by the SS leading member Heinrich Himmler. So all this discrimination going towards Adolf Hitler, stating that he was actually the initiator of this movement towards the clean and pure race, is next to absurd. And as they said before, that it was all written in his book Mein Kampf. In fact, it's not relevant because all the authors need an inspiration to write an actual piece of literature. So again, there were people before him that thought of these ideas. Furthermore, none of the orders towards the sterilization or even murder of the minorities came from the Führer. So I would like to bring to your attention this very important statement. In this aspect of accusation towards the minorities and they want to create a pure race, Adolf Hitler is not guilty. Thank you for your time and thank you for your patience.